Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I have been meaning to sit down and do this video for quite some time. I really wanted to share with you guys what our foster care journey was like and what we're doing now, what we've decided to do moving forward, and also how fostering has impacted our children, because I know many of you have children and you really want to open your door to vulnerable children, and that's a question that a lot of families have, is how is that going to impact my children? So I want to talk to you guys about that in today's video. So last year we fostered, and so what happened was we decided to do foster care adoption, and because we really wanted to adopt and give a permanent home to children who needed a home. And so when our foster care agency called us, they called us about a sibling group, and it was a boy and a girl. The boy was 4 years old and his sister was 2 years old. And we said yes right away. And so, gosh, when they came into our home, it was like, it took probably, I would say, about 3 months or so for everybody to adjust. Obviously for them to adjust to us, for us to adjust to them. And it was a wild ride for the first 3 months. And it also took a while for my boys, I have 3 boys, for them to adjust, because it's been just the 3 of them for a long time. And even though we prepared them, we talked a lot about fostering, what fostering is, and all of these things. We had so many discussions with our children before we actually, accepted our first placement. But still, it's like, I feel like with anything in life, you can talk about something so much, but until you actually experience it, it's just different when you're experiencing it versus when you're just talking about it. And so our kids experienced foster care, and it took them a while. And after, I would say, about 3 months or so, they really took a liking to our foster kids, like in the sense of being okay with their space being invaded. I guess that's what they would say. It's just been the 3 of them for so long that this was the first time we had kids in our home for so long that we actually were going to adopt. And so when we said yes to these kids, it was actually for the purpose of adoption. So what happened was that they had already been in, I think, 4 different homes, not because of anything they had done. It was just logistics. Like, one of the foster parents was a nurse and she worked overnight shifts, and she was willing to take the kids, but then after a week she realized she couldn't do it, so then they had to move them to another home. So it was nothing that the kids did. It was nothing with behaviors. It literally was just like these homes just happened not to work for these kids. And so they had finally settled in a foster home and were with those foster parents for, I believe, 2 years. They were doing really, really well. And then, DHHS, the state decided that it was time to terminate the rights of the parents because the kids had already been in care for 4 years. And so they really started talking about adoption. There was talk about terminating parental rights. And so our foster care agency called us because the siblings, their foster parents, were not looking to adopt at the time. They really felt like God had called them to just foster and just to be a safe home for kids. They were not looking to adopt. Plus, they already had 4 children of their own, and they just were not looking to adopt more kids and become a family of, I don't know, is that going to be 8? So they were just fostering, and they loved having the kids, and the kids were doing really well. So when the state started talking about termination of parental rights and all that kind of thing, and the foster parents were advocating for the kids, and they said, hey, if this is really going to be moving forward, we need to find an adoptive home for these kids, because we are not an adoptive home, and we don't want them to stay with us and miss out on being able to bond with their new adoptive family. So their foster family actually were the ones advocating for the agency to find an adoptive home for the kids. So this is how we got a call. A foster care agency called us and they said, hey, we have these 2 siblings. The state is going to terminate the parental rights of the parents. It's been 4 years. For sure it's going to happen. And we want the kids to be in an adoptive home so they can start getting used to the family before the adoption actually happens. And we said yes, because that's what we wanted. We wanted to adopt. And so we took him in. For about the first 6 months, the goal was still to terminate the parental rights. Mom had just basically been AWOL, and nobody knew where she was. She hadn't had any contact with the kids for about 2 years. Dad was kind of around, but like sporadically. You know, like he would do a visit, I don't know, like twice a month or something, even though he was supposed to have visits, I don't know, like 3 or 4 times a week. And so there just really wasn't any like movement or advancement with the kids. Moving forward, 9 months go by, and then 12 months go by, and all of a sudden we get a call that the, you know, termination of parental rights is not going to happen anymore. It sounds like what happened was that dad got a new girlfriend, and the girlfriend was really adamant about helping him get the kids back. And so she really encouraged him to like do the work and get the kids back. And so it became a really tumultuous time all of a sudden. Like we went a whole year with, you know, it's going to be adoption, termination of parental rights. And we were all for it. And literally, it's like, it was literally all of a sudden. We were not given any notice that there was a possibility that termination of parental rights would not happen. And so that was a shock. I mean, we were just so shocked. Like, wait, like we were adopting these kids, you know, what's going on? And so it took, I would probably say about 2 or 3 months for us to actually swallow what was actually happening. And so, I mean, to his credit, the dad really did do what he needed to do. He started doing his visits. There really wasn't any safety issues with dad. It was more like, you know, was he going to be able to parent without help? You know, he just needed a lot of help with family support and stuff. And so the biggest question was like, you know, if him and the girlfriend break up, will he be able to really take care of these kids, you know? So fast forward, I think it was actually exactly maybe a year or 3 months or something like that after we had the kids, that they went back to their dad. And man, it was quite the roller coaster. It's one thing, I think, to enter foster care knowing that you're only fostering, and that's your expectation. When you're a foster parent, you know that the kids are going to go home to their parents, and so you don't ever have this idea that, oh, I'm going to adopt them. You know, it may be a possibility, but that's not what you're thinking of. You're thinking of like just doing the best you can to reunite the family. But when the kid's coming to your home for the purpose of adoption, that's a totally different expectation, right? Because we were completely expecting to adopt these kids. The way that everything was going and the way that the state was talking to the caseworker, everybody on board was for adoption and termination of parental rights. And then literally it just switched one day. So after the kids went back to their dad, my husband really, he was trying to have a good relationship with the dad, and we were hoping that we'd be able to keep having a relationship with him over the years, just to be extra support for dad, so that if he needed somebody to watch the kids or if he needed a babysitter or something, we would just be here, you know, for help. But unfortunately, that didn't really work out. You know, after the kids went home to their dad, at first he was really open, like, yeah, but you know, I would love for you guys to watch the kids and all this stuff. And then after the kids went home, it was just, you know, like no more communication. So we just needed to take a breather because it was just so unexpected and so sudden that, I mean, our heart was broken because we had just this expectation, not just because we thought of it, but because that's what was being told over and over again for months. And then everything just flipped on its head. And so we just needed a few months to, you know, just swallow what happened and just let our hearts heal before we got back into it again. So it's been almost a year actually now. May of 2024 is when they went home to their dad. And wow, that's crazy. It's been almost a year. I just realized that. I'm saying it out loud. So we've just been waiting and deciding, what do we want to do now? Do we want to just foster with the understanding that we're just supporting the family, or do we want to look into adoption again? So that's where we've been for the past year. Well, as we've been kind of thinking through that and deciding what we're going to do, what happened was that I decided to start working in juvenile court again. And for those of you who don't know, when I first opened up my law practice almost 10 years ago now, I did it with the goal of wanting to help foster kids. And so when I graduated law school, I really wanted to do adoptions, but I also wanted to advocate for foster children. So here in our state, what you can do as a lawyer is that you can go up to juvenile court. Juvenile court is where all the foster care cases happen. Here, you just have to go there and let the judges know that you're interested in being a lawyer on cases, and then the judges appoint you to these different cases, either as a lawyer for the parents or as a guardian ad litem for the children. So that's what I did. I went up to the judges, introduced myself, and they started giving me cases. And so I was appointed as guardian ad litem for children, attorney for the parents. And that's where I really got the experience of working in juvenile court. That was years ago. And after a couple of years, I decided to stop because of a particular case that I had that just, I couldn't agree with the way that the judge made his decision on the case. And so I just needed a break from juvenile court. I was just like, I cannot do this anymore. I really wanted the families to be well, to be healthy, for the kids to go home. But I just saw another side of juvenile court that I wasn't expecting. So I took probably a good 5-6 year break. And this year, 2025, after our foster kids went home, I still call them our foster kids. They're not our foster kids anymore. They're back home with their dad. But anyway, when the kids went home to their dad this year, I just thought, you know what? I really missed advocating for kids in juvenile court. I didn't love representing the parents. It was just a challenge being an attorney for the parents. But I really, really loved advocating for the kids. And so I decided this year to go back to juvenile court and to start advocating for foster kids again. And so I think I now have 10, 12 kids, maybe 14 by now, that I'm guardian ad litem for. And as I started doing that work again, I just realized how much I love advocating for foster kids. I genuinely love it. And I call them my children because as a guardian ad litem, I'm advocating for them and representing what's in their best interests. But I feel like they're my children because this is what I would do for any of my kids, and advocating for what's best for them. And so I have so many kids now that I'm guardian ad litem for that I'm just so grateful for how God, just being where I am now and realizing. I did a video earlier this year talking about the lessons that we learned from 2024. And one of the things that I learned definitely was that I love being a guardian ad litem, and it's okay to not foster as well. And because I've had, God gave me such a heart for foster kids, I wanted to do all the things. I wanted to be the guardian ad litem and also be a foster mom and also adopt. And also open up an orphanage, and also this, and also that. What are all the different ways that I can really love on these kids and show them that God loves them, that they're not alone, and that they're loved and precious and valued, But I just realized this year that, what? Fostering is great, and I will continue advocating for fostering because we need so many families to foster. But I realized that I'm just a better advocate. I just fit there. And I love it so much being a guardian ad litem. So all that to say, I talk a lot about how, we all need to play our part in being a voice and being an advocate for foster children, but we all have our roles to play. So for example, in juvenile court, there's all these different people involved, right? You've got the attorney for the state. You have the attorney for the Department of Health and Human Services. You have the attorney for the child. You have the attorney for the parents. You have the caseworker. You have the family support worker. You have CASA. You have all these people involved. You have the visitation worker. So many people involved. But I was thinking about this the other day, if all of us were not playing our roles, right, something would be missing. All 8 team members cannot be guardian ad litems, right? All 8 team members cannot be the county attorney. All 8 team members cannot be the caseworker, right? All of our roles were so important and unique in that case because we're bringing a different aspect to the case so that the family can have well-rounded support. And so that picture, we were saying at a team meeting, and I was just like, wow, this is my role, when everybody was introducing themselves. And I thought, man, this is the way that I envision the church coming together to care for vulnerable children, is that we all figure out what our role is. Not all of us are meant to be foster parents. Not all of us are meant to be guardian ad litems like me, right? Not all of us are meant to be a CASA. Maybe some of us, our role is just to be a support for foster parents. We come alongside the foster parents and we say, hey, I can babysit sometimes your foster kids. I can't foster, but I can babysit for a weekend if you need a break, or I can cook you a meal, or I can help you with your laundry, or I can help you maybe with transportation, and you just be a support for foster parents. Maybe that's your perfect spot that you fit in. Maybe your perfect spot is a casa, and you love that. And that's like God's giving you gifts and talents, and it's just perfect fit. Maybe your role is to be a foster parent. I met a foster mom who, she's amazing. Like, it's like she was literally made to be a foster mom. There's like nothing that phases her. She will take any kid. She will take the 16-year-old who's bad mouthing everybody and cussing up a storm. She'll take the 3-year-old who has, developmental delays. She'll take anybody. And she just like loves it. It's like literally God made her to do this role, and she does it so well. She loves the kids so well. And then, there's the caseworkers, the really good caseworkers who really feel called to this. And they're there and they're like the team manager, and they're making sure that the parents have what they need and that the kids are doing well. So all that to say, we all have a role to play. And it may not be that, you need to work in the state and be a caseworker. But what I'm saying, I'm talking to the church right now, for the church especially, there is a role for you to play. You have a role to play. You don't have to be a foster parent, and you don't have to be a lawyer like me and be a guardian ad litem either. But you can support the foster parents in your area. You can advocate in your church and say, hey, you know what? We need to give support and services to foster parents. You can be an advocate. You can be a teacher, in your church, and you can advocate for there to be trauma-informed teaching, so that when foster kids come into your church and they go to, children's Bible school, that there are teachers there who are trauma-informed and who know what to do when a child is having a hard time because of, they're being triggered by something. There's so many different roles that you can play that is the perfect fit for you in advocating for foster kids. So I just want to encourage you, like for me, I did fostering, which I've been wanting to do for a long, long time. And now looking back, I realized, you know what? God made me to be a lawyer for a reason. He made me to advocate for a reason, because these are the gifts and talents that he's given me. And I want to be faithful with those gifts and use that well to love the kids. And I just want you to know that your role is so valuable and so, so important. And it doesn't have to be the traditional roles that we think of, like foster parenting or casa or guardian ad litem. How did fostering impact our children? Well, by the time our foster kids left our home, our children were crying. They were like, we don't want them to go. And they'd be playing around and like using their iPad and taking like videos of them doing like silly things and laughing and stuff. And still today, they'll go back and watch those videos with them like playing with a train car or like wrestling or whatever. And they'll say over and over again, I wish our foster kids was here, and I wish that we could have adopted them, and I wish, she was my sister. And even though it was a rough first 3 months, they got to love him so much now. They're constantly like, when are we going to see them again? Are we going to be able to see them at some point? And so I just want to tell you, like, if you prepare your kids for this, especially if you've never fostered before, your kids will be fine. You have to be very intentional to work through issues as they come up, and for your kids to know that they're so valuable and important to you, that when they come to you with concerns, that you're willing to actually address those concerns, So that's what we did. The first 3 months, at some point, like, I was so busy because the foster kids were so young. They were toddlers, and so there were diaper changes and you had to give them baths, and I was like, woo! I was out of that stage for so long that it was a lot to have 2 toddlers who needed you physically so much. And so I kind of dropped the ball on spending time with my kids, because I'm like, okay, it's 7 o'clock. We need to start, bedtime routine. I'd take the toddlers upstairs, get them ready. And by the time I came down, my kids were going to bed. And so I just was missing them. And my kids came to me, they were like, Mom, you're always with our foster kids now. Like, we barely get, time to spend with you. And man, that was like a light bulb moment. I was like, okay, I have to change this. I cannot be so, like rigid with like bedtime and all these, that I actually miss out on spending time with my kids. And so I listened to my kids and I said, okay, what would you guys like me to do? What do you want to see? And we talked through it, and I literally changed everything so that my kids knew, that they were just as important to me, And so you'll learn as you go through, and you learn to adjust. But the biggest thing I would say is listen to your kids. Make sure that you're constantly, if it's like a weekly family meeting, and talk about, okay, what's going well, what's not going well, what can we do to change, like, where do we need to change things? That really, really helped our family stay connected with our children and make sure that they knew we were listening to them, they were valuable, obviously important to us, and that we weren't just like all about the foster kids now, and like kind of throwing our biological kids to the side. And so that really, really helped us. So like I said, by the time our foster kids went home, our kids were really, really sad, and they still miss them to this day. We still miss them too. I mean, they've been such an impact in our life. So let me know in the comments below if you guys are on a foster care journey right now. Are you fostering? Or just let me know how you are thinking about playing your part in caring for vulnerable children. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.